But how are you? Just kind of just like in general.
Sometimes I'm good up here, and
Mm.
sometimes it's not good. It's a
Now,
little bit of both.
where are you exactly up there?
I am in Potsdam, New York, which
Potsdam.
is quite close to Montreal. Quite
Oh,
like
wow.
so north that we do not consider ourselves upstate New York. Like we don't call ourselves upstate. We are the North Country.
Whoa, that is up there.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't realize how up there was.
I mean, there's good stuff. Like I've had the chance to still keep making music in this past year and stuff. That has been a lot of that has been really satisfying, really good. And
Mm.
then I'm missing interacting with my students in person
Mm.
and missing making music with people in the same room, big time.
Yeah, it's about time that something happens on that front. It's getting old, this whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's getting a little old.
It's getting a little old. I thought after a year I'd kind of get used to it. This is the new normal, as it were. No, I'm itching. I'm itching to get
Yeah,
back
I
out there.
mean, you find your things like we went to the thrift store today, and it
Mm.
was like riveting. It was exhilarating to go to the thrift store for 20 minutes, with like three other old ladies with their masks on. It was
Oh, that's
awesome.
nice. I love a good thrift. This blazer, in fact, this suit jacket was a thrift store find.
So that's like so Doug Stanhope does that in every town. He'll
Mm,
go to the thrift store and get the ugliest suit and perform in that suit.
that's wonderful. That's terrific. So, Joe Sferra,
So we've started now.
we've started now, buddy boy. Yeah, I mean, I realized we were having a good chat, and I realized I hadn't said your name, and people don't know who you are. So I thought a little slightly more concrete beginning would be nice. So your name is Joe, and what do you do? What's your deal, man?
What do I do? What's my
Yeah,
deal?
if you had to summarize all that.
I am a musician,
Hmm.
and I think that if you have an open mind and if you have an open ear, that can lead you down a lot of different roads. If you have an open mind to what is good music, what is music at all,
Hmm.
what is good playing, and you can listen and you train yourself and you work on listening a lot, it can lead to a lot of different things.
Yeah.
So for me, that has led to both teaching theory and ear training and stuff. And it's led to composing, it's led to arranging, it's led to playing the clarinet. But then I've also ended up, in these settings that I definitely wouldn't have expected myself to be in the past few years, like playing in a country band, or
Hmm.
like being at all sought after to play clarinet with anybody, David,
Oh,
like
well,
like and like I've played keyboard in musical pits, like done narrator parts for, I did like the narrator part for Coming Together. Like, I don't know,
Oh,
like I've
wow.
ended up doing all these weird, like not weird things. They're not weird to me. I like them, but like to other people, it seems like a bit of like a patchwork life as a musician. But for me, it's been pretty cool.
I feel like we're very much kindred spirits in that way, where we
Mm-hmm.
do kind of a mishigosh of different musical things. Like, I don't find myself saying no to very many things, where I think if I was still in the more classically trained mindset that I was educated in, I'd be like, do what?
Mm-hmm.
Write a TV show theme song? Moi? Like, I'd think that maybe certain things would be kind of beneath me, or like more popular music. Like, I know plenty of professors in college who were like, oh, I don't listen to popular music. Like, I don't, that's not a thing that I do. But I definitely feel like I came into Stony Brook like, I'm a composer, that's my thing, and that's how I was kind of selling myself and branding myself. And I came out basically saying, I'm a musician, and composing is one of the things I do. And you mentioned a country band that you're in, and I believe this may be the same country band that I'm in. Would you like to just a guess? Because I think I've seen you in rehearsals. Would you like to
Yeah, I
talk a
think
little
I've
bit
seen you
about that?
too.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think it was 2015. It was like my first year that I was here. Taylor Ackley and I moved out of the campus dorms and moved in together. And then Allison moved into the house with us as well. Allison at the time, Rowe,
What
moved
is it?
in.
Nero?
Nay, yeah, nay.
Yeah,
Nice.
is that weird?
That's a
Weird.
Jeopardy sort of thing. Yeah, no, it's good. And we started playing together because Taylor had this just sort of very rich background of playing lots of traditional American music. And I was down, Allison was down, and we started working things out in the basement, singing stuff together. And that sort of evolved into a workshop of playing traditional American music at Stony Brook, which then evolved into this ensemble. When we're at a country music festival or at a fall festival, we're a country band. When we're in a recital hall, we're a chamber ensemble. The frame is the message there, but what we're trying to do all the time is take this music and play it at a really high level and use what we know from our conservatory training or our jazz training or wherever else we're coming from, and put it to use, put it together, and put it towards this kind of music. And this ended up being pretty cool.
It really has. I remember when I visited Stony Brook, I gotten accepted, and I didn't really know much about the school. I knew a couple people who were students there that I'd met, and they were incredibly good musicians. And it was kind of near-ish New York. I was like, oh, I got to check this out. And they had kind of arranged this whole composer day. You get to come in, you get lunch, you get to talk to different composition professors, yada, yada. And then they had the composition recital in the evening. Seeing the variety of music being made there, I thought, coming from Lawrence University, kind of a small experimental conservatory, that I'd seen a bunch of weird things on stage, but I'd never seen anything just like a bluegrass group. I don't think I'd seen a banjo in a recital hall.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Or even an instrumentalist who sings.
Yeah.
Somebody who doubles on voice and instrument. You maybe had never seen that in a recital hall, maybe other than you doing like a singer-songwriter thing. I'm sure you did some singer-songwriter thing at Lawrence in some recital hall.
Not in the recital hall.
Oh, okay.
I did a couple things for, like, there was one benefit that I put a little band together for, and I did something in like the on-campus bar, but I didn't do much. Again, I think especially at that point in my career, I was like, well, composition is the thing that I do.
Right.
And then like sometimes I write songs, but it's mainly just like a creative release that isn't being graded. I didn't see it necessarily as something viable in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, seeing just a person singing and playing an instrument at the same time is very uncommon. And so having kind of witnessed that on stage, we went into the green room afterward for a little wine and cheese party and whatnot. I think I was talking to Meg and was like, who's that guy who's playing the banjo and talking about the thing? And she's like, oh, that's Taylor. I'm like, I'd like to talk to that guy. I'd like to get in touch with him. And so we talked a little bit. And I was like, yeah, well, if I wind up coming here, it'd be great to get, be a part of that group. And he's like, well, what do you play? I said, piano. And he's like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah. He wasn't too thrilled about that. And then I was like, and then I have a mandolin. I hadn't even really played it. I had learned to play, the first song I learned to play on the mandolin was Monster Mash, which is an odd choice.
Oh, no, that's like G, E minor, C, D.
It's the main chords. It's a 4-chord song.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yes, that's great.
And so I was like, yeah, I know a couple chords on mandolin. He was like, great, mandolin. That's the instrument that you play now. And so kind of through working with you and working with Taylor in that group, I became the mandolinist for a bluegrass band on Long Island. And yeah, that was, I think, a big part of me realizing that how others saw me on stage, the different contexts I was performing or appearing in, was just all under the umbrella of musician. And that if all my business cards said composer and my website just said composer, I was very much limiting myself in terms of how people saw me. Given my history with you in that bluegrass group, when I wrote this kind of large scale country inspired chamber piece, I knew who's the best bluegrass clarinetist in the game. It's probably Joe Sferra. I could do a little bit more research, but I think it's probably him.
I'd be the cheapest slash best, like wherever that curve intersects.
One of those Venn diagrams, you'd be right smack dab in the middle of it. And I also knew too that I wanted it to be just friends of mine. It's like,
Right.
yeah, I could like reach out and be like, so who does anyone know a such and such, but I wanted to kind of just pull on the incredible musicians that I know and have worked with in the past,
Yeah,
to bring on board and kind of share in this passion project. So I'm glad
so
you could be a part of it.
talk to me about the lyrics, because for in my estimation of it, now having listened to it a few times over the course of recording and then listening to the finished product,
You can't say too much.
To me, the lyrics sort of sound like you sort of amassed the sort of vocabulary around this sort of feeling that you wanted to create, and then you sort of took them out of their contexts and sort of repurposed them into like more like sort of like an impressionistic sort of like collage. Is that, am I right there, or am I close to that?
I think that's the best summary I've heard of it so far.
Okay, I'll take that.
Because I'm not good at like summarizing my stuff. I find that other people are much better at kind of explaining my own music to me in terms of like, oh, this sounds like so and so, or oh, I'm getting a very kind of tongue-in-cheek kind of thing from this. I'm like, oh yeah, no, that's yeah. So that was a really great way of describing it. I do think of it kind of as like a murder ballad fever dream, where it's pulling, like you said, all kind of on this vocabulary and mixing it all up. There's manifest destiny, there are oak trees and true loves being murdered. Also kind of bringing that vocabulary into kind of a more modern context. Because it was at a time when I think, maybe I can't remember exactly when I wrote this. I think it was probably between college and grad school when I was doing a lot of traveling and going from place to place. I was like, I imagine like how a cowboy feels, just kind of going from place to place, not really feeling like I have a solid home. And so it kind of stemmed from that. And then kind of the middle section, which is this very old timey teens popular song inspired section, is very inspired, especially vocabulary wise, by the songs that my great great grandfather wrote back in the day.
Okay, so I didn't know that your great great grandfather was a songwriter.
Yeah, well, he it was kind of a passion project for him. He got some things published. I think he mainly worked on like the Rock Island Line.
That counts. That means he's a songwriter.
That's true.
We gotta take these labels back, man. He's a songwriter.
Yeah, he wrote songs. That
means he's a songwriter.
That's how it goes. No, that's true. You're right. That's just, again, my classical education being like, oh well, he's not really a classical
big time
education.
Totally. It's ingrained in us.
Yeah. So he was a songwriter.
Yes.
And he wrote all these songs.
Yeah.
And so that part was very much kind of an homage to him and to that particular style.
Yeah, because it reminded me, I heard what sounded like Harry Nilsson sort of things, and then I thought about like Van Dyke Parks, and I thought about the Beach Boys, and especially the Brian Wilson and Van Dyke Parks stuff when the boys were out touring, and they come back and they're like, Brian, what the hell is this? What are these lyrics?
What have you been up to?
He's just like, don't worry about it. It's cool. It's gonna sound really good. Don't worry about what the lyrics mean. Like, so like to me, it was like, then the way that you're explaining it, it's not like this literal one-to-one story, but it's also not, these lyrics don't mean anything. Just listen to the music. Listen to me singing these words. It's somewhere in between.
It's somewhere in between for sure. And it's kind of amorphous how much I take away from it or how much listeners will take away from it. But I think it is more creating a world and feelings surrounding it. I'm gonna have a quick sip of my my delicious cherry Pepsi.
Are you getting sponsored? Well, you reminded me when you were talking about your trajectory through grad school and out, how you sort of reconsolidated. You thought, going in, like, be a composer. I'm a composer, and I'm going to say that I'm a composer.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, you sort of emerge as a musician. And I feel very similarly.
Mm-hmm.
What happened to me too was that I think in college in general, at Ohio State, where I did my master's, and then at Stony Brook, I was thinking about, how to make different kinds of music belong together, because that's how I hear that stuff. That's how I think about music, that it all has the potential to belong together. So what I would do is I'd try to put tons of things into pieces, into like individual pieces, or have them be little movements of larger things, and have like lots of different kinds of ideas existing together. As I left, I have started relaxing a little bit more stylistically, and not getting so pent up about, like, well, every kind of music needs to exist in every kind of piece. Like,
Absolutely.
this is a piece where I'm doing a weird Bartok symmetry thing, because that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
this is a song. This is an arrangement of a video game tune, and I don't need to put any weird modern stuff into it if I don't want to.
Yeah.
I think
Totally.
sometimes you still can, but I'm trying to enjoy myself more, and not get caught up in thinking about history as much, and just thinking about, what do I want to hear right now?
Totally. Yeah, it's good to realize that, like, the different styles that we're familiar with, or that we have experienced composing or writing, creating through, are just like individual tools in a toolbox, and we don't have to throw the whole box at the wall at every single piece in terms of kind of what we walk away with. I remember I was talking to Taylor like maybe 2.5 years ago, Taylor Ackley again. And I was talking to him about my songs and then about my compositions or something like that. And he was like, have you ever like kind of combined those? And I said, no, and I hadn't even crossed my mind. Like, for me, at least, it's two very different modes of creating, both kind of stemming from improvisation, but then where I take that improvisation is very different. And so I think this album, Pictures at an Inhibition, coming out April 30th, is a good example of kind of me bringing, maybe not necessarily a classical music language, although it sneaks in spots, but at least aspects of classical music that I've studied, especially orchestration, in this album, and kind of trying to bring the two worlds a little closer together where they've previously been quite distinct.
Aaron, it's using your toolkit. It's using your experiences to inform it. I've felt like so many times when I'm in a new musical context, or if I want to start something new, I am combining some aspect of my previous experiences, and then something's new. Like, it's something old and something new almost every time. Like, I remember playing in the pit for Mamma Mia at this theater on Nantucket, one of the coolest summers ever. But I remembered thinking at the time that the experience was much closer to playing in church than I had given it credit for. That it's, there are these prescribed times where you have to play music, but there are also some times within those prescribed times where you need to reaccommodate for something going wrong.
Oh, sure.
You might need to vamp. Somebody might have come in wrong. You need to readjust within that. So you have, like, there are these fixed times where you need to be totally on and do the exact thing every time, but also you might need to improvise in, like, the arrangement at a second's notice.
Sure.
Your album is similar, where you've taken your experiences now, where even if it's not one-to-one, you're not quoting Debussy at the beginnings of your songs or anything like that, but what you have learned is definitely, it's there, whether you like it or not, or whether you make it intentional or not, it's there.
Certainly. And I think I've talked to some composers about this, especially younger composers, because people look up to me as a sort of father figure, especially when I wear a suit. And I am imbibing them with words of wisdom. And one of the things that I believe very strongly is, when you go to undergrad in particular, there's a lot of talking about your voice. What is your musical voice as a composer? And going off of what you said, I think it's so subconscious. I feel like you have a voice, whether or not you're aware of it, whether you're aware of what kind of influence your training or your listening or your experiences have had on the music you make, it's in there. And I learned this, this was when I was in high school. I was talking to a jazz pianist, and he said, you know what you should do? You should write some pieces in the style of some other composer that you like. And I was like, ooh, okay. So I wrote 3 pieces in the style of Eric Satie, my 3 Vossiens.
Yes. Oh, those are great. Yeah, that's a great title. Sorry.
And I still like those pieces.
Yeah.
But that's a little separate. But the main thing I learned was, even when I try to sound like someone else, it still winds up sounding like me.
Okay, trust me, I could talk about this stuff all day. I love this stuff. Like, there's a great article by my old professor at Ohio State where it blew my mind when I was like 20. I didn't even know. Like, it was like, style and technique are not the same thing. Style and technique are 2 different things. You used Eric Satie's techniques, but it was in your style.
Yeah.
It's 2 different things. And like, I think about that a lot. There was another metaphor that really stuck out with me. I think it's like on Nico Muley's blog or something. Like, he was just like, style is not clothing. Style is a plant. So style grows slowly, and it depends on what you feed it. And it's a cumulative process. It's not like, this piece, it's in this style. This piece is in this style. This piece, you might use a certain technique, but it's still refracted through your style.
Sure.
Yeah, I care about this stuff a lot. I feel like I made the mistake of getting way too obsessed about style, especially in undergrad. I think that, especially as a young composer, you should just throw everything at the wall.
Yeah.
Use every technique that you've ever heard of and just get all the bad stuff out.
Yes.
You're still getting bad stuff out now. Like, you're still doing it, but like, ideally there's a little bit less, or you know that it's bad and you can tell, like, there's something else. You get a little bit more attuned to it. Yeah. But like, don't get obsessed about if this thing is in your voice or not. It is in your voice because you frickin' did it.
Absolutely. A large part of my undergrad education was just exposing me to new techniques, because I was so unfamiliar with like the past 150 years of music, and especially classical. And I think a lot of times I would be exposed to this, aleatoric writing, or, weird kind of sounding extended technique stuff, or serialism, or all these weird, crazy new music things. And I'd go, well, I don't want to sound like that. But I'd do it. Like, I'd write the piece using the, based on recommendations by my teachers. But I'm glad that I wrote those pieces and learned more about the techniques, so that in the music that I'm writing now, which is generally music that I want to write and that I think sounds good, I can always pull on different aspects of my technical education to work within the style that I have now. And even now, it's not like a style too, right? It's still just like, there's little branches going off, like kind of using that plant analogy.
Yeah, totally. And you could surrender. I found that I can surrender aspects of the music to process, to sort of like serialism-ish things.
Sure.
And it'd be fine. I don't need to freak out about every single, like, if I turn some of this over to a process, it'll probably still be fine.
Yeah.
Or at least that'll generate raw material that then I can edit. I mean, I think about like Dalla Piccola or something. I use Dalla Piccola in my classes all the time. Have you listened to any of this stuff?
I'm not too familiar, no.
My dude, it's so good. Now, because he's an Italian opera composer who finds out about 12-tone.
Oh, gosh.
And then starts writing 12-tone music, and it sounds like an Italian opera composer writing 12-tone music. It is
weird,
heartbreakingly beautiful, tender stuff that is, when you do the analysis, it's 12-tone. I pull it on I did it with my students last week, because we're like, of course I had to teach about 12, like I was required. I felt like I should address it with these students.
It's a big thing. Yeah.
They should know about it. If they want to be literate in like the history of 20th century music, they should know that it existed.
Totally.
But I'm not going to play them some of that stuff that sounds like ass, like, you know, like, because I don't want them to leave my class thinking that this technique sounds bad. The technique has the potential to sound bad, but let's listen to some Dalla Piccola. And I started the 12-tone stuff with Dalla Piccola, and they're like, this sounds weird, but all my friends who were older than me here said that this sounded, the 12-tone sounded bad, and they were wrong.
Yeah, that's great.
Yes.
Because
That's the goal.
With some of these techniques, we so closely associate them with certain composers that it's really difficult to kind of separate the two in our mind. That's cool.
If we're going to practice what we preach about being open to all kinds of music and keeping our ears open and that sort of thing, we should then we should practice what we preach.
Yeah.
We got to practice what we preach. That's what I think.
Totally. Do you find that religious musical influence from your upbringing has started playing a larger role in your music recently?
You're loading the question. You've been checking me out on Facebook.
I've been doing some digging.
So, I mean, yes, totally it has. And, you know, I think part of it was actually like my education, like in college, when even maybe I was lapsing a little bit, let's face it, a lot, but like learning about composers who later in their life returned to church music, like Mozart writing fugues right at the end, that sort of thing. Yeah. Where they were like, no, it was all about church music all the time. But definitely in the past year or so, when I've been up here in Potsdam, New York, away from a lot of my collaborators, it's harder to meet people and make new music and stuff like that. I was feeling adrift. It's nice to have something to latch onto that you already sort of know. And for some people, latching onto something was making the 12-tone row, right? That there was like a process that you could base your piece on, and there was something taken out of the equation. Yeah. You didn't have to worry about it anymore. And for me, I started doing that with hymn tunes. Definitely was also related, I think, to me being quite unhappy with being an American these days. Yeah. So I have been conscious, like, I know that this music stands on its own, and I need to be clear about this. Like, if I reference a hymn tune or I play like my version of a hymn tune, I'm not saying, see, I took this dumb, ugly thing and I made it good. Yeah. Like, no, it's already good. And like, just hearing 800 people who can't all really sing that well sing it with an organ, that is beautiful. That's good. Yeah. That is great. Because that's what it was written for. That's great. But for me, I think about things so often as a clarinetist. I think about it through my own lens. So I'm taking these hymn ideas and putting them into my lens and trying to find something else meaningful from them for me. So much of being an American now is being ashamed, and I'm trying to vindicate some of these artifacts in a way that is personally meaningful to me. And so I've been exploring that in a couple different ways. I mean, I wrote some solo clarinet things, and I've been wanting to expand them. I got my wind taken out of my sails very recently with that, because I wrote something and then realized that it was not in the public domain. Oh, no. So I can't use it. It was going to be so cool, but I'm not even going to say what it was, because I'll be very embarrassed, because the hymn was written in like 1972. Oh, wow. That's recent. I should have known, but and he but I am going to continue with that. You up on eagle's wings. Didn't that dude get in trouble very recently? I don't know. One of those Jesuit hymn tunes got in some trouble recently, some very bad trouble. So I have a feeling that maybe we won't be doing that one anymore. I'm going to have to look into that one. I did that on Tuesday. At a memorial service. Well, as we know, people in the church have a strict no tolerance policy for being bad. We're very forgiving. But this is exactly where I'm coming from. Like, I'm trying to like dig some of this shit from out of this reprehensible institution within this other reprehensible institution, take these hymns out of American church music and remember that they meant a great deal to me. Will Dannenberg and I did a program in October, actually. I didn't tell anybody that was in the city. Sorry, David.
I
Just like,
know.
I was,
I had to live stream it, and it was great. It's
I
on
had
YouTube.
to hide, not tell anybody
Okay. All
because
right. Well,
didn't want to
yeah.
get anybody sick,
Sure.
and trying to, get some meaning, get some beauty out of it from there.
Hmm.
I mean, Will is much more connected to it because he is still now a church musician.
Hmm.
Um, but I have not been doing that as much. Uh,
Sure.
but it still is, the music is meaningful to me. And
Certainly.
I want to think that even though we've been in what are perhaps systemically evil institutions and evil places and evil times,
Hmm.
that we are not all irretrievably damned.
Yeah. One of the things I appreciate about the church job that I have is even when it's really easy to be dismayed by fundamentalist Christianity in America or organized religion in general, it's a great reminder for me to every Sunday go to church and be with really great people
Yes.
singing. Well, not I'm singing, no one else is singing, but singing really great music that I
Mm-hmm.
love in a beautiful building. It's just a reminder that even within systemically troubled institutions and times, that there's still good people within those places and good things, music or whatever it is for you, that can be found in those places too.
I think that every musician, every student who is a musician should play in a church
Mm,
at some point, and they should play several times in a church. One, because you need that sort of improvisational flexibility.
yeah.
What if you need to vamp? What if the pastor just looks at you and is
Oh my,
expecting you to play something
that's
and
the
you don't have
worst.
anything planned? Right. You gotta
That's the
just
worst.
you gotta go. You gotta
Yeah.
do it. That is a great skill to have. Like, it's both the skill stuff, but then at the end of the service, to have 20 people come up to you and say, hey, thank you for playing. That is
Yeah.
so missing from most young musicians' lives, at
Mm,
least here in the US.
yeah.
Like, hey, thank you for playing. Like, I won't say who it was and I won't say where it was, but I have been called the best piano player in the world before at a church service.
Yeah.
Like, at the end, like, somebody said, we have the best piano player in the world, and it's like, bless your heart. You are wrong, but I know that in your heart, in this moment, you really think that
Mm,
that's true, and that is incredibly meaningful. And I think it's an experience that's missing from a lot of musicians' lives these days.
totally. Yeah. I know a lot of people personally and through academic education, you often build up a sense of self-doubt and self-sabotage once you look around you and think, well, all these people are doing amazing. They're fantastic musicians and they seem to be excelling more than I am, at least outwardly. And yeah, you can get into a kind of nasty self-hatred spiral. So yeah, it is a very nice reminder to actually be told, like, wow, like people who have, you might as well be doing literal magic. Like I might as
Totally.
well be Moses turning a staff into a stick up on stage
Yeah.
for most of these people, where it's just like, that was amazing. It's
Wait,
huge.
you mean you made that up? You mean you made that up right then?
Yeah, yeah,
Like, that's the
yeah.
way that we feel about, like, that's the way I would feel about, like, a sculptor or something. Like,
Mm.
wait, you, like, cut that out of a stone? Like, it's as unfathomable to me
Yeah,
as this music stuff is to other people.
totally. And now that I've finished my refreshing cherry Pepsi, I believe this will draw our interview to a very gracious close.
That
Thank
was
you.
their whole plan. You wait. Sorry, I didn't.
No.
Thank you so much, Joe. And we'll see you. And Joe can be found at soundcloud.com/Joe-Sferra. No,
Oh, well, I mean, I will include links
don't
in
go
the
to my
description.
SoundCloud. It's terrible.
Okay,
No,
same.
don't do it.
SoundCloud is nothing's happening over there for anyone.
Yeah,
I don't think. Who's
sorry.
who's uploading their SoundCloud? I don't know. But thank you so much there, Joe, for having a nice chat. We talked about some great things.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for
Be
having me. This
well.
was fun.
Yeah. Just need a little room at the end to edit.